All right. Hi. I'm literally going to take a moment to invite my higher power in before I even open my mouth. If you want to join me, cool. If not, whatever. It's fine. Okay. So, oh my God, there are a lot of people here, but I'm Alex and I'm an alcoholic. I just want to go ahead and I guess I will thank the chair who reached out to my lovely friend Jeanette um, about getting a speaker from this area and asking me to speak tonight. I was honestly unaware until like 15 minutes, like maybe 30 minutes before, or maybe it was like 2 hours. I don't know. It was like short notice. I was like, oh my God, I forgot I committed to this. So, but it's really funny how my higher power works because lately I have been isolating. I have wanted to hide. I don't want people to know me. Um, like and it may not seem like a big ordeal because a lot of people say recovery is recovery. But for me, like I had to do something completely different for my spirit. And I actually, so my clean date is December 2nd of 2016. I'll have 4 years December 2nd. Sorry if my math is off. But I got clean in NA. And my spirit needed something different. And so I prayed on this for about a year. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to do this and I'm going to go where recovery takes me. And so I ended up here. And when I got here, life wasn't like peaches and cream, but it wasn't what it is today. And you would think that today would be better. And like, yes, I am not using, um, but I'm going through a really rough time in my recovery, and it was like all due to like a decision that I had to make based with like integrity and self-worth for myself. And I'd been praying on it for 2 years and like meditating and talking with my network and really building that connection with my higher power. Um, Not really sure too much like on what I should be talking about. That was just kind of like a little, I don't know what you want to call that, just like something of where I'm at in my program today. So I guess I'll try to go from like the beginning and try to keep it as short and simple as possible. Um, so if you guys used and, drank like I did, I'm pretty sure you know what like uselessness and self-pity and dereliction feels like. Powerless, just alcohol was my master, drugs were my master. And today my life doesn't have to be like that. I went through a lot of pain, and you don't have to go through a lot of pain. My bottom looks different than somebody else's bottom, and like that's okay, because I think that's a beautiful thing. Like that's what creates diversity but also unity, because we have a common purpose of being here, and that's alcoholism. Like we're all here to help the still suffering addict, or excuse me, alcoholic, achieve sobriety. Alcoholic addict, same thing, I guess, but try to keep it AA related. So I used for many years. Throughout my progression, the drinking got worse, the drugs got worse. I used people, I lied, I cheated, I manipulated. I sold drugs, I sold my body. I did whatever I could to fill the void inside of me that needed to be filled with a higher power. And so what happened during the process of using and a bunch of degradation and dereliction there, I ended up losing my children to the state of Illinois. And I was like, oh man, I should probably do something different. And I just, it literally had such a tight grip on me. Like I said earlier, like it was my master. And so I continued using for a long time, and still trying to play the state while using and getting your kids back, and going to meetings and showing up drunk or showing up high. I just couldn't stop. Although I really wanted to, I just didn't have like the surrender yet. That really came along with that. It was like I was willing, it was like 1 foot in and 1 foot out. So I continued that way of life for years, a few more years after I lost my kids. And I decided one day, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna stop, right? So the individual that I was with at the time was extremely abusive. And so I had to basically sneak out after, being on a bender for a really long time. He finally fell asleep. So I was like, okay, this is my time to like go. So I called a few people in the program that day. They suggested like don't leave the relationship, but like leave the home, like do what you have to do for yourself and for your children. And I was like, okay, bet. So like that's what I did. And I thought, oh, I know what will make this all better. I won't get high, but I'll just have a margarita. Like, just like where my thinking was like, well, trying to make huge life decisions, like I didn't have to do that with the decision that I just made recently 2 days ago. I didn't have to drink a margarita to be like, this is how I'm going to practice integrity, you know? Um, so that is different. So, however, the very next day, I had a visit through DCFS with my son. And, when I was out there, I acquired some really strange mannerisms and habits. And so I crawled through my window the next day to get the diaper bag for my son. And I didn't have a car, I didn't have a job, I didn't have anything. When I got to the rooms, I was jobless, homeless, and penniless. Uh, and anyway, I proceeded to climb through the window to get the diaper bag. And my boyfriend and I were arguing from the previous day because he didn't know where I was. And I was like, I'll see you tomorrow. Well, when I found him, he was overdosed. And it was not the first time. Overdoses became a huge part of my life. There were people constantly coming in and out of my house. My house literally was the dope house. I don't look like somebody who would be like, I'm this hard gangster. And like, no, I really wasn't. I was like this hippie wannabe pretend gangster. And so anyways, I found him overdosed and I was like, wow, like, I don't think he's coming back. And I can remember that day pretty clearly. I hadn't put anything in my body that morning. And I rushed over to him and I turned him over and he was splotchy. I mean, gray and purple. And 911 was like, okay, you're probably going to have to wipe the puke out. So I proceeded to wipe the puke out. And like, if anybody has experienced an overdose, like it is not pretty and you're not alone. Like, if you're dealing with feelings, if you're in that process now, if you're still going through like whatever it is years later, like you're not alone. It's a process. And like, I think that's the first time I've actually shared that without crying. Doesn't mean that I don't feel it today. I've just like healed some things and really taken a look throughout my step work and like have opened up and become real vulnerable about that area of my life. Anyway, so he didn't make it back. He passed away in 2015. So yeah, my clean date is 2016. All right, cool. So yeah, you would think that would be enough for me to stop, but I kept going. I went for another year. And what surrender felt like to me is total and absolute exhaustion. Like when your car runs out of gas and you're pushing it up the hill, like, oh, I think I can make it to the gas station because we don't have the red can, you know. Um, that's what, so, like giving up and surrendering felt like to me, because I did at one point think surrender was like what weak people do. And it's not. It's actually what strong people do. Like, you have, like, for me, I had to give up all my old ideas and everything that I thought I knew because I didn't know shit. My ideas like were not the greatest all the time. Anyway, so I found the rooms, got clean December 2nd, 2016. Haven't found it necessary to put anything in my body to take a drink or anything. And my recovery process has been anything but 100% graceful. The sponsor that I worked with when I was, honest about step work, she made sure that in each step I understood the principles that were incorporated in those steps and that I was like actively practicing those in my life before I could continue moving on to the next step. And there were times in my recovery where I had to keep going back and reviewing those steps. And so that happened as well because, just because we get to the rooms doesn't mean, we become perfect. Like, we become human. Like, that's been my experience so far. Like, I'm learning how to become human. Like, I was ill-adjusted to or maladjusted to life. I didn't know how to live without, like, drinking or drugging. Um, so thank God for the program and for the tools that we get to learn here and the principles we get to practice. Because like I said, we're not perfect, we're human. So that means we are, like, going to falter. I also feel that while I've had the experience of working the steps and the sponsors that I've had throughout the time, for me, it's really vital that I'm doing a daily 10 step, because the 10 step shows me like if I'm continuing like the rest of the steps. Like, okay, where did I not practice acceptance? Like, how am I practicing faith? Was I willing today? Did I give of myself to other people? How did I back into the stream of life? And what am I doing for my recovery to be in the image of my higher power, to be what my higher power intends me to be so I'm able to help the still suffering alcoholic? Because it's not all about me today. Um, it really is crazy that Jeanette asked me to speak. Um, like I said, I've been hiding, and it hasn't even been when I made that switch from NA to AA. My life was like okay, it wasn't horrible. So the things that I shared weren't like what they were when I first got to the rooms. Like the other people saw that. So when I got here, I was like, nobody really knows me, so everything's fine. Um, but there was an area of my life that like wasn't fine, and relationships are a really tough, painful area. They can be, they don't have to be. But from time to time they are, and that's just reality. And that's where the footwork comes in. How am I being unconditionally loving? Like, am I accepting this individual for who they are right in this moment? Um, am I being compassionate? Like, just whatever. So the decision that I had to make is like, I decided to leave the individual I was dating for 3 years, because it's a long story and that's probably kind of like irrelevant. So I'm going to try to keep it recovery oriented. But I did that by praying for 2 years and by sharing with women in my network and praying and praying and praying and praying and like meditating and listening to like that inner voice, that gut feeling you feel when you're like, man, like I don't feel that the unconditional the unconditional love that I have learned in the rooms is being reciprocated back. And this is the first relationship that I have been in since I lost my boyfriend, and my boyfriend who had passed away, that is. And I didn't break up with that individual who passed away. That was like, oh, I'm just leaving for the day and coming back the next day. And I came back to him passed away. So there was like no closure there. And then, I did give myself some time before I got into another relationship. However, like whatever God's plan is, whatever it's going to be. Um, like I said, unconditional love that I had learned here in these rooms, I didn't feel like we're being reciprocated back. Like I have learned how to love myself. And when I spoke with somebody about what had been going on, she kept it real simple. She said, okay, like, girl, I think that you do have some self-worth today. And I feel like you have accepted your truth, but maybe not like the truth. So if anybody's going through anything like this as well, like this is the experience with strength that I have today. And I wish it was different, but it's not, and it is what it is. So that decision I made was really hard. When you want to have integrity and do the next right thing, like I have 2 kids. So, like me, we lead by example, man. We lead by example. And I was taught that pretty early on in my recovery. I've got 2 kids. I'm a single parent. Like, of course, like I'm their mom, I'm their dad at times. Like, I'm whoever they need to be. I'm the nurse, I'm everything. So if you're a single mom, like you're not alone in here. If you're struggling, like there are those who face their dilemma, found a way out. It's very possible. Um, yeah, things are not great today in this moment. Today, tomorrow's a new day. After this meeting's a few new minutes, few new moments. But I've been really angry, and recovery is not like this cookie cutter, like beautiful process all the time. Like I said, my process hasn't always been graceful, and I don't feel very graceful right now. Before I even went to my home group tonight, before this meeting, I didn't even want to go to my home group. I didn't want to let people know where I'm at. I didn't even want to let you people know where I'm at. Because I don't want people to know me, because my disease is like, no, we're going to do it this way. And it's like, not today, motherfucker. Like, no, Felicia, you got to take a back seat, because I worked hard to find like peace, and certain things are not worth giving up my peace for today. Um, which is kind of like that surrender that I was talking about, because before I made that huge decision, and it doesn't have to just be with relationships. So if somebody's struggling with the message I'm trying to express, sometimes we can just hear what we want to hear. So maybe you could put, like, instead of relationship, whatever it is. But before making that decision, it was like the surrender I was talking about. Uh, I was like absolutely extremely exhausted, like emotionally exhausted. And when I communicated this to him, he's like, this isn't what I want. I said, what do you want? And he said, I don't know. Like, I shouldn't have somebody today who is unsure about me or my children. And like, it even says here in the big book, I was reading something different today because I was like, I'm sick of reading pages 86 to 88, like my sponsor wants me to, that I've been doing for almost a year. But she has me doing it for a reason, because I'm learning, I'm seeing things differently. My disease wants to have a huge distorted perception of things. It wants to distort my reality, and like, not today. That's why for me, like, my recovery and the principles that I apply, especially the principles, and in all areas, like, it's just really necessary, not just for me, but I'm sure for a lot of people, you know. Um, However, after he expressed what he didn't know, um, it says on here, because I have a hard time like letting things go and letting them be. It says, as God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone. Like, I don't have, like, today I can have some self-worth about myself, and have enough love for me and my family to be like, look, if this certain love isn't reciprocated back, then like, it's okay. It's also okay to be like, he's not a bad person for being where he's at. Like, for me, that is accepting, like, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever the situation is. I don't know how long I'm supposed to be talking, or how long I have been talking, but yeah, there's always a solution. It's in all of our literature. um Probably suggest starting with the big book first, with a sponsor who has a sponsor who has a sponsor who's probably reading the book, the black part, reading the book, and applying the principles and the steps. Um, yeah, no, this process has been interesting these last few days, but I feel like this is how people are going to get to know me, even though my disease is like, you're better. And it's like, no, like, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And like, with me being open minded, I'm able to remain like teachable, because I don't know everything. I'm not God. I need to quit playing God, you know? Because in my 10th step, I was seeing where I was still like dishonest with myself about that area of my life. And I aspire to be literally how my higher power would be, which is cool, because since I've got here, I found through, I'll just say it, through Wicca. Um, I don't have a magical wand. Nope. That's not Wicca. It's not like I'm this crazy ass witch. No. The principles that they incorporate are like very loving. Like, love is like one of their biggest things. And I feel that's like extremely important for me. So I don't know. I'm glad to have a higher power today who gave me strength, who gives me strength and continues to give me strength. And for the people in the rooms, my sponsor, literature, everything. I don't really have a whole lot more to share, but I hope some of that, of whatever just came out of my mouth, made sense. So grateful for AA. Thanks for letting me share tonight.